So minor certificates of appropriateness, I can normally process, review, and issue those administratively, and those are just routine maintenance things. You're looking at paint, you're looking at repairs to match existing, tuck pointing your brick, any major landscaping, rebuilding a retaining wall, sometimes replacing doors and windows as long as the opening size isn't changing. For something that requires a major modification, a major certificate of appropriateness, those have to be reviewed by the Landmark Commission for approval, and you're looking at things that could alter the historic integrity of the home. If you wanted to infill any window openings, if you wanted to remove any siding and replace it with a different style of siding, if you wanted to construct an addition or any sort of new accessory structure that had a high degree of visibility, removing any architectural features as something that could impact the integrity of the home more immediately. In addition to sort of the existing underlining zoning, single family, multifamily, you also have to adhere to the stipulations for a historic overlay district. So it's a zoning district, a historic designation. It can be either 1, 2, or 3, and that basically governs any exterior modifications to the property. You have to get separate approvals for that in addition to any permits you might otherwise be required to have. I also get a lot of questions about routine things. People will call in and ask, do I need a COA? A lot of times for a lot of our districts, if it's anything on the exterior, you are going to need a certificate of appropriateness. So it always helps just to reach out with an email, a phone call. I can always answer your question. That's sort of what I'm there to do. So the major certificate of appropriateness application can be found on the City of Dayton website. You could also reach out to me and I can email you an electronic version of of that, or you could come into the City of Dayton. So currently for a minor certificate of appropriateness, you would just need to give me a phone call or send me an email, give me some details about the project and the property, and then I can normally review and issue it. Starting in 2024, we actually are going to have an application for minor certificates of appropriateness, and those will be able to be found on the City of Dayton website, or you can email me. I can send you an electronic form. You could come into City Hall and pick up a physical copy of the form if you'd rather. For the major modification applications, those are available on the City of Dayton website. Also, you can come into City Hall, pick up a copy. If you have any questions, you can discuss your project with me at City Hall or, via email or on the phone as well.
Researching house history is a lot of fun, and I'll give you a couple of tips for physical locations and then a couple of tips for online sites as well. So the wonderful resource we have here in Dayton at the main library, the local history room has a complete set of Dayton city directories. They began to be published in 1857 and every year after that, and they list heads of households and their address and their occupation. And then in 1914, they started publishing a reverse directory, so you can look them up by address and see who lived at that address. So it's a great resource just to initially look up your own address and see who lived in your house. It is important to remember that house numbers and street names did change over the time, so just be aware of that. The second resource is the Montgomery County Recorder's Office. They have all of the property deeds for the county. And so you can search online back into the early 1940s and they'll list the prior owner. So if you look up your deed, it will say who it was purchased from, and then you can move back from that. Before the early 1940s, you can research in person in their office in the county administration building. And there again, they can help you know how to do that so that you can create a complete chain of title for all of the owners of your property, and that forms the backbone of the research on your house. And then from there, you can go to the Montgomery County Archives and Records Center, which is in the Ribble building at Main and 4th Streets. The county archives have all of the property tax assessments on microfilm. So you look up the owner's name, and then when you see a massive increase in the property tax assessment, then you can assume that that's when your house was built. So that gives you a brief sense of who owned your house and when it was built. My mother, the art teacher, regularly said, color magnifies by volume. So just because it looks bright and cheerful on a paint chip, it may be just too much if it's covering an entire house. Many paint companies offer palettes of historic colors, but it's important to remember that just because a color is listed as historic, it may not be appropriate for the particular era of your house. So it's important to research what paint colors and what palettes were appropriate for the era of your home. For instance, a gingerbread Victorian would need different colors than a mid-century modern. Research by looking on Google for images of historic homes from your period. You can also look around the historic district at other homes. It's important to get a sense of what color combinations work for the period. And also, it's important to remember that just because two colors are considered historic, they may not go together. So find a house that you like, and then copy those colors if it's a house that's similar to your house's period.
So if someone has started work or they've completed work and they haven't gotten a certificate of appropriateness, sometimes the housing inspector will notice ongoing work or change on the property. Sometimes a neighbor, a resident of a historic district will call me and ask, has something happened here? I'm seeing work going on. I don't see that certificate of appropriateness. I don't see that green placard in the window. And that's when I start to look into it. Sometimes the homeowner just forgot to put the placard up. Sometimes they didn't receive it in the mail yet and they didn't think to contact me before the work began there. And then so if I haven't had any contact with the homeowner, I don't know what's going on with the property and I don't have a way to contact them, I reach out to housing inspection and they go by and they will issue a stop work order or they issue a legal notice telling the homeowner, hey, you're doing work or you have done work and you didn't get the proper approvals for it. And then what happens is the homeowner will contact me and we discuss what's happened. Sometimes it's something simple that I sort of retroactively will issue a certificate for just so we have it on the record. What has happened at this house? They've painted and the color is fine, or they, removed a tree in their yard, but everything checked out there, or they were just installing some pavers. However, if it's ever anything large, like removal of a chimney, I've seen some people start taking down their porches. I've seen people start, changing the sizes of windows. Then we issue the stop work order. All work will cease, or there will be fines from the housing department. And then we take it to the Landmark Commission. If the homeowner doesn't want to reverse the changes they've done, do it in compliance with our standards, we'll go to the Landmarks Commission, we'll discuss what's happened. Sometimes they're willing to sort of work with the homeowner depending on what changes they were doing. If it's something that could have been approved with a major modification in the first place, we just sort of get everything on the record, what's going to happen, what it's going to look like. If it's something that they can't compromise on, like altering the size of all the windows on the home or removing a very visible chimney or changing the style of a porch, removing the gingerbread, they will deny it, and at that point the homeowner is required to reverse the changes. And at that point it does sort of shift to being a housing inspection problem. They'll sort of keep up to date with any required changes. Ultimately they could take them to court. It is sort of out of my hand and in a different department at that point.
We're realtors. I'm John Sue, and this is Amy Sue, and we're realtors with Keller Williams. We had a listing here by one of my colleagues at 1625 4th Street, and we had worked with that project, and then a neighbor at 1700 4th Street. Also, we were working with them, and we listed the house, and in that process, we really enjoyed the neighborhood, got to really get on the ground and realize the quaintness, the location, and the personalities that are in this neighborhood. So we're going to fast forward to about a year later. This house here, 1944 4th Street, comes up for sale, and we're in the mode for doing a good rehab. Well, that's what we wanted to do, and we thought that this would be a great candidate for exercising the ability to rehab and to kind of contribute to this neighborhood. And that's how we ended up here in Huffman. First thing that I would recommend is to fact find. Get your boots on the ground here. Here I was given the names of the president of the Huffman Neighborhood Association, Rosie Miller. She provided me a wealth of information and donated a lot of time to my cause. They're here to help, and because not only are you a stakeholder with the information that's given, they are also a stakeholder, being your neighbor. The second thing too is plan, right? You got some, you have some ready and waiting contractors wanting to get to work, but you can keep them at bay. The better you plan it on paper, the better the execution of the project, because you're what they call it, see it, plan it and then play it, right? So.
And lots of patience.
Yeah, lots of patience. And have all those things such as certificate of appropriateness. If you don't know what those are, or if you don't know how to get them, ask. It seems like every time I was inquired about something I didn't know, there was someone to ask it.